There's a 2003 interview by Chuck Foster with Joe Higgs that references Joe Higgs being hit in the face by Coxsone Dodd after an argument about payments for royalties.
Hello everybody, you're welcome back again to the Reggae Appreciation Society. By the mid-1960s, the great musical machine called Studio One was Jamaica's #1 hit factory, the very outfit that was turning out superstars like Marshall Griffiths, the Wailers, Ken Booth, and Owen Gray. Its owner, in the larger-than-life Coxsone Dodd, was one of the dons of the island's music industry and one of the most influential figures in reggae's history and development. The great Joe Higgs, on the other hand, was arguably Jamaica's most important musician and music teacher, as he single-handedly mentored a whole generation of aspiring musicians, on top of being one of that country's foundational artists, as one half of the pioneer duo of Higgs and Wilson. It was in that period that these two titans would join forces and crank out a slew of mega hits in that time. But rather than blossom into a powerful partnership, a bizarre clash of interests would see that relationship end with a shocking assault that stunned witnesses, shocked Jamaica's recording industry, and led to a permanent divide between both men. Though heavily underreported in these days, it was one of the most talked about incidents in Jamaica's recording industry in those times, and a prime example of how rugged and ruthless the music business was in its infancy. Let's take a look at the untold story of the infamous brawl between Joe Higgs and Coxsone Dodd at Studio One. And to do justice to this story, we first have to trace how the parts of these two giants came together in the first place. By 1960, Joe Higgs and his partner Ray Wilson had the biggest song in the Caribbean with Oh Manny Oh that they recorded for WIRL Studios, which was then owned by future Prime Minister Edward Seaga. That song sold 40,000 copies, a huge number in those times, and was soon followed by other hits like I Long for the Day and Lover's Song. Higgs and Wilson's success inspired thousands of Jamaican youngsters to become musicians themselves, many of whom Higgs would indeed mentor in his backyard at Trenchtown to become Jamaica's biggest singers. That duo was very high up on the wish list of every producer in the land, including a young eagle-eyed entrepreneur, sound system boss, and recording studio owner called Clement Coxsone Dodd. Ever the go-getter, Dodd approached them and convinced that pair to come over to Studio One, which was fast becoming the #1 music academy in the Caribbean. Higgs and Wilson continued their fine form in Dodd's camp with hit songs like How Can I Be Sure, Shabada, and Dina, before Roy Wilson emigrated to the US in 1964. By that time, Studio One could boast of many red-hot stars topping the charts, like the Wailers, child prodigy Delroy Wilson, plus supergroups like the Scatterlights. Higgs would continue as a solo artist at Studio One, putting out hit songs like Love Not For Me, and also acting as a mentor to Studio One's new talent, in whom he would impart his deep musical discipline. But beneath it all, he was deeply upset at the chronic lack of financial rewards, despite all the hit records which he has scored over the years, and especially the non-payment of his royalties. And if you know anything about Joe Higgs, I can bet you are aware that he was a very fearless character, molded by a childhood of hardship in Trenchtown, and one who was never scared to challenge injustice anywhere he saw it. He approached Coxsone Dodd to fix that situation, and after a few months of not finding any headway, he would cut ties with Studio One at the beginning of 1964, and would go on to record for various producers and serve as lead singer with different groups like Carlos Malcolm and the Afro-Jamaican Rhythms and the Soul Brothers Band, put together by a legendary rocksteady guitarist in Lynn Tate. As the 1960s progressed, many Studio One stars like the Wailers had parted ways with Dodd over money, and led to a slight dip in his outfit's dominance on the island, while on the other hand, his arch rival Duke Reid of Treasure Isle Records was taking the lead with a masterstroke of taking on and producing super harmony groups like the Paragons and the Techniques, plus superb singers like Phyllis Dillon. That period was the very dawn of rocksteady's era, and these vocal geniuses would find their sweet spot with that new sound, and powered Duke Reid's outfits to immense success. I believe that as some sort of countermeasure, Coxsone Dodd reached out to Joe Higgs in 1967 to come back to Studio One, possibly to keep him from recording for Duke Reid, and more importantly, to harness his immense vocal ability, which was perfect for the rocksteady sound. And according to people close to Joe, he was by then very distrustful of Dodd and the music business at large. But for some reason, he agreed to go back and record for Studio One. to announce his return, he wrote and recorded what became his biggest single, There's a Reward for Me, an inspirational masterpiece that preached hope to the sufferers or downtrodden in society. This song resonated with the masses of Jamaica and became a smash commercial hit. But rather than this success marking the dawn of a fruitful collaboration between Higgs and Dodd, it soon led to chaos. In the aftermath of the song's success, Higgs expected Dodd to pay his royalties from that single, but several months after, he hadn't earned a dime. So one day, Higgs decided that enough was enough and went to the studio to confront Dodd. That producer had a reputation of being a hothead and also a track record of not paying his artists their royalties. When the singer approached him, Dodd ignored him at first, but Higgs was very insistent and literally followed him around the studio, demanding his money. It all got to a head when Dodd told him to come back the next day, and Higgs insisted that he would wait to get his money. In a split second, Dodd turned around and hit Joe Higgs in the eye with a vicious punch that knocked that singer to the ground, injured. Watching the entire scene was Studio One singer Ken Booth and bassist stroke vocalist Lloyd Parks, who were both shocked to their bone marrow. Everyone in Studio One knew that Dodd was a handful, but that was the first time they'd seen anyone get assaulted by him. Lloyd Parks, in a recent interview, said that seeing Joe Higgs get punched for asking for his royalties made him decide to stop working at Studio One, and of course, he never bothered to ask for his royalties. Joe Higgs' injuries were quite serious and led to him spending some time at the hospital. And though I can't confirm it, there were rumors that Dodd discouraged him further from exerting more pressure for his royalties by getting a policeman friend of his to intimidate Higgs from even trying. The whole incident got Joe Higgs totally disillusioned with the music business, and especially from a recording artist's point of view. And from then on, he would largely focus on live performances and touring. But mind you, he would still record intermittently over the years and put out limited material before he finally released his debut album in the aptly titled A Life of Contradiction. He put out 5 more albums before he passed away in 1999 at the age of 59. That unfortunate incident at Studio One truly sparked his radical streak and reportedly inspired him to write the song Stepping Razor a few months later. All in all, a truly awful example of just how exploitative and brutal Jamaica's music business was in those early days. I truly think that if Coxsone Dodd had paid him his money and did what he was supposed to do, the great Joe Higgs would have passed Studio One into a new level of dominance in the rocksteady era, and even into the golden age of reggae in the 70s. But we'll never know, and all we can do is speculate. So there you have it. Thank you for watching this video today. Please leave a like, subscribe, and until next time, Jah bless.